April 17th, 1944. 24,000 feet above the jungle-choked coast of New Guinea. The air is thin enough to sting your lungs, even through an oxygen mask. Sunlight flashes off aluminum wings like a knife. Below, the jungle looks calm, too calm, an endless green ocean hiding airstrips carved out by bulldozers and blood. First Lieutenant Jack Ripper Mallory, U.S. Army Air Forces, grips the control stick of his Republic P-47D Thunderbolt, serial number half hidden under exhaust stains and chipped olive paint. His aircraft shudders as the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 engine roars at full military power, 2,000 horsepower vibrating through metal, bone, and nerve. On the nose of the aircraft, just below the spinning propeller hub, white chalk letters are barely visible. Meat Chopper. Mallory didn't name it. The ground crew did, after watching what 8.5 caliber machine guns could do to steel, wood, and flesh at 800 rounds per minute. The radio crackles. "Red Flight, this is Red 1. Keep your eyes open. Intel says enemy scouts slipped out of Wewak before dawn." Mallory rolls his shoulders inside the harness and scans the sky. He's flying top cover for B-24 Liberators, hitting Japanese supply depots along the coast. The Thunderbolts are here to make sure nothing gets close. The P-47 is not elegant, it's not light, it doesn't turn well, but it dives like a falling safe and hits like a freight train. And the Japanese know that. Or at least they think they do. At 24,000 feet, Mallory spots them first. 5 dark specks climbing fast from the sun, angling to intercept the bombers. The formation is tight, confident, long noses, slim wings. "Bandits, 5, 11 o'clock low, climbing," Mallory snaps into the mic. As they close, the shapes sharpen. Nakajima K-43 Hayabusas, or Oscars to the Americans. Lightweight, razor-turning fighters flown by veteran pilots, some with China and early Pacific victories painted under their canopies. One of them rocks his wings. They're challenging. Mallory exhales slowly. He's seen this before. The Japanese pilots believe the rumors that the P-47 is too heavy, too slow to react, that if you drag it into a turning fight, it will bleed energy and die. They're about to test that theory. "Red Flight, don't turn with them," Mallory warns. "Boom and zoom only." The Japanese fighters split into 2 elements, climbing hard, trying to force the Thunderbolts to lose altitude and speed. One Oscar rolls inverted and drops towards Mallory's wingman, guns flashing. Tracers streaked past Mallory's canopy, green, bright, close. Mallory pushes the nose down. The meat chopper accelerates instantly, gravity and engine combining into a violent shove. The airframe howls as speed builds, 350, 400, 450 miles per hour. The Oscar below tries to follow. It can't. Mallory pulls up sharply, converting speed into altitude, then snaps over the top and dives straight back down. The Japanese fighter is still climbing, slower now, nose high, vulnerable. Mallory squeezes the trigger. 8 machine guns speak as one. The sound is not a rattle, it's a continuous tearing scream. The recoil vibrates the cockpit like a jackhammer. Tracers converge on the Oscar's fuselage. For half a second, nothing happens. Then the Japanese fighter comes apart. The right wing shears off. The engine cowling explodes into fragments. Fuel ignites in a flash of orange flame. The pilot never bails out. Splash 1. Mallory says flatly. The other 4 Japanese pilots react instantly, but not by fleeing. They turn in. One dives across Mallory's nose, another comes in from above, a third slips low, trying to climb into his blind spot. They're fast, aggressive, brave, and they are making the same mistake. Mallory shoves the throttle forward and dives again straight through the formation. Tracers whip past the canopy. A burst punches holes through his right wing. No critical damage. He doesn't turn back immediately. He dives deeper. The altimeter spins. 18,000, 17,000, 12,000. The Japanese fighters hesitate. They follow, but their engines scream in protest, airframes shaking as they near their limits. Mallory pulls up hard, blacking out for a heartbeat, then snaps into a climbing roll. The meat chopper is bleeding speed, but it has something the Oscars don't: momentum. One Japanese fighter crosses his gun sight, trying desperately to turn inside him. Mallory fires a half-second burst. That's all it takes. The Oscar's cockpit disintegrates in a cloud of plexiglass and smoke. The aircraft flips end over end, trailing debris. 2 down. The remaining 3 scatter now, climbing, diving, anything to escape the invisible wall of fire around the Thunderbolt. Mallory checks his ammo counters, still green. His voice is calm, almost cold. Red flight, stay high, they're braking. Below him, the meat chopper climbs again, engine roaring, guns cooling, the sky suddenly wide and empty. 5 Japanese fighters had entered the fight. In less than 3 minutes, only 3 were still flying. And the lesson was just beginning.
April 17th, 1944, 21,000 feet above the Huon Gulf. The sky doesn't go quiet after a kill. It just feels emptier, like something has been ripped out of it. Lieutenant Jack Mallory steadies the P-47 Thunderbolt as the last 3 Japanese fighters scatter into separate vectors, each pilot choosing survival over formation. The meat chopper climbs heavily, engine still roaring, oil pressure steady, the airframe scarred but strong. On the radio, his wingman, Second Lieutenant Eddie Klein, sounds almost breathless. "Ripper, did you see that first one? He just came apart." Mallory doesn't answer right away. He's tracking a lone Oscar diving toward the coast, probably hoping to disappear into cloud layers or ground clutter. "That's what happens," Mallory finally says, "when you fight the jug like it's a 0. The mistake is an old one and deadly." Japanese fighter doctrine is built on turn performance and pilot aggression. Their aircraft are light, responsive, capable of knife-edge maneuvers that leave heavier planes wallowing behind. It worked in China. It worked against early Wildcats. It worked against inexperienced pilots. But the P-47 isn't meant to dance. It's meant to hunt. Mallory pushes the nose down again, committing to another dive. The Thunderbolt surges forward, speed building with terrifying ease. The Oscar ahead tries to jink, left, right, tight turns that would shred a heavier aircraft's energy. Mallory doesn't follow the turns. He cuts across them. The jug's massive wings slice through the air, inertia carrying it on a smooth, controlled arc. The gun sight settles just ahead of the Oscar's nose. A short burst. The Japanese fighter shudders as rounds punch through its engine. White smoke erupts, followed by black. The pilot bails out at barely 6,000 feet, parachute snapping open just before the aircraft slams into the jungle. 3 down. The 4th Oscar doesn't run. Instead, it climbs, hard, pulling straight up in a near vertical ascent, daring Mallory to follow. It's a classic trap: bleed the enemy's speed, force a stall, then roll over and kill him.
Mallory almost smiles. He shoves the throttle to the stop and follows, but only for a moment. As the climb steepens, he breaks off, rolls inverted, and dives again. The Oscar crests the top of its climb and stalls, nose wobbling, wings shuddering. That's when Mallory comes screaming back up from below. The P-47 punches through the thin air like a battering ram. The Japanese pilot sees it too late. The P-47 guns open fire from nearly point-blank range. The Oscar vanishes in a ball of fire and debris. The radio goes silent. Only one Japanese fighter remains. He's smart enough to know he's outmatched, but pride is a heavy thing to carry at altitude. Instead of fleeing outright, he tries one last pass, coming head-on. Mallory braces. 2 aircraft close at a combined speed of over 700 miles per hour. Tracers streak past the canopy like glowing needles. A round cracks the Thunderbolt's windscreen, spiderwebbing the glass, but not penetrating. Mallory fires. The effect is instant and catastrophic. 8 50 caliber machine guns hammer the nose of the Oscar. The propeller disintegrates. The engine block fractures. The cockpit erupts in flame. The Japanese fighter snaps into a spin and disappears into cloud. 5 Japanese fighters. 0 left in the air. Mallory pulls up and scans for threats. None appear. The bombers are already turning for home, their mission untouched. Red Flight, form up. Let's get out of here. As they head back toward base, Mallory feels the familiar tremor in his hands. Not fear, not excitement, but the delayed reaction of a body that's just survived something violent. On the ground, intelligence officers will log the encounter as a brief engagement. They won't note how quickly confidence turned into panic. But word will travel. Back at Wewak, at Hollandia, at Rabaul. Pilots will talk in low voices about a new American fighter, one that doesn't turn, doesn't slow, and doesn't stop shooting. They'll whisper a name they heard over open radio frequencies. Meat Chopper. And next time they see a P-47 in the sky, some will hesitate. Others won't.
April 18th. 1944. Finschhofen Airstrip, New Guinea. The Thunderbolts come back in low, wheels dropping, flaps whining, big radial engines coughing as they throttle down. The meat chopper touches the pierced steel runway hard, tires smoking, suspension groaning under nearly 7 tons of aircraft, fuel, and ammunition. Ground crewmen scatter as Mallory taxis in. One of them, Sergeant Leo Ramirez, crew chief, stares at the bullet holes peppering the right wing and whistles. "Sir," he mutters, running a hand over torn metal. "You bring this thing back looking like a colander one more time, I'm charging you rent." Mallory kills the engine. The sudden silence is deafening. "Still flies," Mallory replies, unstrapping. "That's all that matters." Ramirez nods. He's seen worse. Everyone on this strip has. Behind the humor, though, there's something else. Respect. The P-47 has earned it. Because what Japanese pilots learned in minutes over the Huon Gulf is something American designers understood from the start. The Thunderbolt is built to survive mistakes, yours and the enemy's. Inside the squadron hut, chalkboards already show rough diagrams of the fight. Intelligence officers listen closely as Mallory and his wingmen describe how the Oscars tried to force turning engagements, how they climbed too steeply, how they bled speed they couldn't afford to lose. "They fought us like we were zeros," says Klein, "like they'd fold if we just pulled harder." A captain from operations nods slowly. They still don't understand the jug. The P-47 isn't fast off the line. It's not graceful,
But above 20,000 feet, with room to dive, it becomes something else entirely. Its turbo supercharger, buried deep in the fuselage, feeds the engine dense air even at altitude. Where Japanese fighters gasp and wheeze, the Thunderbolt keeps pulling. And then there's the armament. 8 Browning M2.50 caliber machine guns, over 3,400 rounds total. Armor-piercing, incendiary, tracer, each burst a chainsaw of metal and fire. Against lightly built Japanese aircraft, a half-second hit is often enough. Japanese pilots don't know that at first. They see a big target, a fat fuselage, thick wings. They think, easy kill. What they don't see is the armor plate behind the pilot's seat, the self-sealing fuel tanks, the engine that can lose cylinders and still drag the aircraft home. By the afternoon, reports come in from other units across New Guinea. P-47s from the 348th Fighter Group, the 35th, similar encounters, similar results. Japanese pilots engaging aggressively, Japanese pilots dying quickly. One intelligence officer reads from a decoded intercept, translated hurriedly from Japanese. Enemy fighter does not slow in vertical maneuvers. Firepower is overwhelming. Do not engage unless advantage is absolute. Mallory leans back against the wall, helmet resting at his feet. Still flies, he mutters. Across the water, at Japanese forward bases, the mood is very different. Pilots sit on overturned fuel drums, smoking in silence. Mechanics patch bullet holes in aircraft that barely made it home. Commanders argue, some blaming tactics, others blaming machines. The veterans know the truth. They can feel it in their bones. The air war has shifted. The Thunderbolt doesn't need to outturn them. It doesn't need to chase. It just needs one pass, one dive, one burst, and the sky belongs to it. The nickname spreads, not officially, not in reports, but in stories passed between pilots. A big American fighter that cuts men out of the air. A plane that grinds. A plane that chews. A plane they begin to call, in rough English, meat chopper.
October 12, 1944. 26,000 feet above Leyte Gulf. The sky over the Philippines is crowded in a way New Guinea never was. Bombers, fighters, contrails crossing like chalk marks on a blackboard. Below, the sea flashes silver under the sun, dotted with ships pushing toward Leyte's beaches. First Lieutenant Jack Mallory is older now, leaner, more cautious. His P-47D-30 carries fresh paint and fresh scars, and still, beneath the cockpit, the same name, Meat Chopper. This time, the Thunderbolts aren't just escorting bombers. They're bait. Intelligence has intercepted frantic Japanese communications. Reinforcements are being thrown into the Philippines from every direction, experienced pilots mixed with half-trained replacements. They're desperate, and desperate men take fights they shouldn't. Mallory's squadron cruises high, deliberately visible, sun at their backs, engines throttled back just enough to look vulnerable. The call comes right on schedule. Bogies, multiple, bearing 095, Angels 22. Mallory's jaw tightens. Here we go. Out of the haze, Japanese fighters rise. K-84 Hayates, faster and tougher than the old Oscars. These aren't obsolete machines. These are killers, flown by men who've heard the stories. They don't charge blindly. They test. 2 Hayates feint upward, firing long-range bursts. Another pair dives low, trying to pull the Thunderbolts down.
Mallory doesn't bite. He holds altitude, holds speed. The enemy commander grows impatient. The next move is aggressive and fatal. 4 Japanese fighters commit to a full climb, trying to drag the P-47s into a turning brawl at altitude. It's the one place they believe the Thunderbolt must finally bleed energy. Mallory rolls his aircraft slightly, voice calm in the headset. Red flight, dive, now! The formation tips forward as one. The sky turns vertical. The meat chopper surges ahead, gravity slamming Mallory into his seat. The airspeed needle races past 450, 500. The Japanese pilots try to follow, but the gap opens instantly. Their aircraft shudder as they near compressibility. Control stiffens. Fear creeps in. Mallory pulls up just enough to rake one Hayate from below. A single burst. The fighter disintegrates mid-air, pieces flung outward like shrapnel. Klein takes another seconds later. A third Japanese pilot tries to break away, but the Thunderbolts are already above him again, converting speed into altitude with brutal efficiency. In less than 5 minutes, the formation collapses. Some Japanese pilots escape. Most don't. The ocean below becomes a graveyard. As Mallory climbs back to patrol altitude, he realizes something chilling. They didn't panic. They didn't turn wildly. They fought as well as they could, and it still didn't matter. Because by late 1944, the Thunderbolt isn't just a machine. It's part of a system. Radar, training, numbers, discipline, stacked against men flying on hope and fading doctrine. On the radio, a new voice cuts in, another squadron checking status. Red 1, this is Blue Leader. Hell of a show up there. What do you call that thing? Mallory glances at the nose art as sunlight flashes across the letters. Meat chopper, he answers. There's a pause, then laughter, low, uneasy, because everyone listening understands what that name really means.
October 13th, 1944. Dawn. Clark Field, Luzon. The Japanese pilots at Clark Field wake before sunrise. The air is already heavy, the smell of fuel and damp earth clinging to everything. Mechanics roll aircraft out of camouflaged revetments, K-43s, K-84s, even a few battered Zeros pressed back into service. Briefing is short, too short. American fighters were seen yesterday, big ones, fast dives, overwhelming fire. The order comes anyway. Intercept at all costs. Among the pilots is Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka, 22 years old, barely 6 months out of flight school. He's been told stories by veterans, how American planes can't turn, how courage and timing still win the day. He believes them because he needs to. By mid-morning, the radar warning comes too late. Thunderbolts. High. Sun behind them. Tanaka climbs hard, engine screaming, knuckles white on the stick. Around him, the formation stretches unevenly, some pilots climbing too steep, others lagging behind. Then the sky explodes. P-47s dive straight through the formation, not chasing, not turning, slashing. Tracers tear through aluminum and fabric. A fighter beside Tanaka loses a wing instantly. He yanks the stick, trying to turn inside the enemy. The Thunderbolt doesn't follow. It leaves. For a moment, Tanaka feels hope. Then it comes back. From above, from nowhere. The American fighter fires once. Tanaka's engine erupts in smoke. The cockpit fills with heat and noise. He bails out, parachute opening just in time as his aircraft smashes into the fields below. On the ground, shaken and alive, Tanaka watches the battle end in minutes.
Pilots who try to turn are destroyed. Pilots who climb are cut down. Pilots who run are hunted. The doctrine that once ruled the Pacific, lightweight fighters, tight turns, aggressive close combat, dies in the space of 10 minutes. Back in the air, Mallory counts tools over the radio. He stopped celebrating them. There's no thrill left, only grim efficiency. Red flight, regroup, check 6. The Thunderbolts circle above Clark Field, unchallenged. By afternoon, Japanese operations officers fill reports with the same phrases. Enemy fighter maintains energy. Firepower decisive. Turning combat impossible. They are writing the obituary of their own air doctrine. And all of it, years of training, belief, pride, was undone not by a new trick, but by a brutal truth. The sky no longer rewards bravery alone. It rewards power, speed, and discipline. And the P-47 has all three.
October 15th, 1944. Western Luzon, 23,000 feet. The air war over the Philippines has changed its rhythm. 2 days earlier, Japanese pilots climbed eagerly to meet the enemy. Now they hesitate. They orbit their airfields longer. They wait for perfect odds that never come. Above them, the Thunderbolts wait patiently. Jack Mallory flies with his canopy cracked open slightly, warm air rushing in, carrying the smell of cordite and oil from earlier fights. The meat chopper feels heavier now, not from damage, but from experience. Every movement is deliberate, every decision measured. The radio stays quiet longer than usual. That silence is a victory. Then, movement. A small formation lifts off from an auxiliary strip near the mountains. Mallory spots them through a break in the clouds. Red flight, tally-ho! 4 bandits, low, climbing. This time, the Japanese don't attack the bombers. They don't challenge. They try to run. The Thunderbolts descend in a shallow dive, not pushing speed, not revealing intent. The distance closes slowly, deliberately, like a predator conserving energy. One Japanese pilot breaks formation and dives toward the hills. Mallory follows. The Thunderbolt accelerates even at partial throttle, the big radial engine producing a steady, unstoppable surge. The Japanese fighter, lighter, faster to react, throws itself into violent, evasive maneuvers. It doesn't matter. Mallory fires from long range. The first burst misses. The second walks into the fuselage. The third finishes it. The fighter shatters in midair. Mallory doesn't feel triumph. He feels something colder. Certainty. By now, Japanese pilots have learned the rules of this new sky, but knowing the rules doesn't mean you can survive them. Their aircraft can't dive as fast without losing control. They can't absorb damage. They can't outrun a Thunderbolt once it commits. Worst of all, they can't escape upward. In one engagement after another, the pattern repeats. P-47s attack only when advantage is absolute. They disengage at will. They return again and again. Japanese fighters are reduced to reacting, never dictating. On the ground, mechanics begin removing guns from damaged aircraft to save weight. Pilots are instructed to avoid combat entirely unless escorting suicide missions. The word spreads among American crews. Careful, boys, meat choppers carving again. By late afternoon, fuel warnings force the Thunderbolts home. As Mallory turns toward base, he looks down at the shattered landscape, burning aircraft, abandoned strips, empty skies. The enemy isn't gone, but they're broken, and broken enemies make dangerous choices. Mallory knows what's coming next, even if he doesn't know when. Desperation. August 15th, 1945.
12,000 feet over the Philippine Sea. The war is ending. The radio crackles with half-checked messages, voices tight with disbelief. Japan has announced its surrender. Some pilots cheer, others say nothing at all. First Lieutenant Jack Mallory flies straight and level, hands light on the controls of the P-47 Thunderbolt that has carried him through more fights than he can easily remember. Below him, the ocean is calm. No contrails, no flak bursts, no climbing dots from hidden airfields, just sky. Mallory glances at the nose of his aircraft one last time. Meat chopper. The paint is chipped now, sun-faded, scarred by oil streaks and cordite stains. The name that once felt brutal now feels historical, like an artifact from a darker chapter. He thinks about the Japanese pilots, the brave ones, the skilled ones, the young ones who never stood a chance against a sky that had changed faster than they could adapt. They learned the truth in minutes, that courage alone couldn't overcome physics, that doctrine could die faster than men, that some machines weren't meant to duel, but to dominate. The Thunderbolt lands back at base for the final time. Ground crews wave. Some laugh. Some wipe their eyes. The meat chopper will never fly combat again. It will be scrapped or sent home or left to rust in a forgotten corner of an airfield that no longer matters. But the lesson it carved into the sky remains. Air combat is not about elegance, not about honor, not about turning tighter. It is about energy, firepower, and choosing when the fight begins and when it ends. 5 Japanese fighters once learned that lesson in minutes. An entire air doctrine learned it in a year, and the sky was never the same again.